right. Good evening, folks. Welcome to the Thursday, the March 27th meeting of the Planning Commission. We're glad you're here. If I could ask everybody to stand together, we'll have an invocation and a pledge to the flag. Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the gorgeous weather you've given us to enjoy. We thank you now for this time together. Please lead, guide, and direct us in the business of the city. We pray your blessings on everyone here. This we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Have a seat. All right. All right. Has everyone on the commission had a chance to look over the meeting, the agenda from our last meeting, the minutes? Anything we need to add, delete, or adjust? All right. Do I have a motion to accept? All right. Got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second. Oh, Toya, sorry.
Dwayne and Mike. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, awesome, thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and jump right in. We've got one case tonight before us, and it's going to be case 24-003, the Revive Land Group LLC, care of Mahaffey Pickens Tucker LLP, filed an application requesting to rezone approximately 27.85 acres located at Twin Lakes Road, Loganville, Georgia, 30052. Map and parcel here is LG 140020, Walton County, Georgia. The property owner is Twin Lakes Road LLC. The current zoning is CH, and the requested zoning is RM6, with proposed development of 149 residential units. Would the applicant like to come up and say a few words?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Commissioners, good evening. Shane Lanham, 1550 North Brown Road, Suite 125 in Lawrenceville. Here on behalf of the applicant tonight requesting a rezoning subject property from its current CH Highway Commercial zoning classification to the proposed RM6 in order to accommodate the development of a mixed residential community. The property is approximately 27.85 acres. We're across the street from West Walton Park on Twin Lakes Road, in between Twin Lakes Road and Highway 78. We have frontage on both rights of way there. So first, I'll just sort of start off. I've been trying to look through some of the, demographic population growth and home sales data in, both kind of the Loganville area and Metro Atlanta, just to try to kind of set the stage for what I think a lot of us are seeing as far as, and you hear it, if you look into any of these land use and planning discussions and articles, it's a big topic of discussion. So the first couple slides I have in here are just some data that my client was able to put together talking about these price increases over the years. And so you can see those are Metro Atlanta numbers, so those aren't specific to Loganville, but I think Loganville is experiencing, at least in some respects, some of that same price increase in drivers that lead to what you hear folks talk about all the time is this affordability crisis. There's this affordability issue that people are that are at the stage of their life where they're ready to purchase a home, but the market has some built-in challenges that make that difficult. So some of the high points here, just the average price of a home in that Atlanta, I believe it's the MSA area, is up to $540,000, with price increases up 56% since 2019, 37% just from 2020, and still 15% from 2021. The next slide talks about this deficit in housing units. So really what that is you look at the population growth that's been occurring in that entire metro area and just how the supply of new housing units isn't keeping up with that demand, that population growth. And so in smaller micro cases and in bigger macro cases, the law of supply and demand has almost universal application. And that's something that we're seeing here, where there's this deficit of housing units, and of course that leads to scarcity, which leads to increased prices. And so it can be a good thing. You're a homeowner, you see your home values go up, and it's great when you sell it, but sort of in the interim, the property taxes are a part of that. But then also, as the population grows, people need to relocate, people need to move in. It just presents some sort of challenges in the market for people. So that is all related to some of the discussion that Loganville has in its own comprehensive plan, where it talks about, one of the things it talks about in the demographic sections, and then specifically in this needs and opportunities chapter, is that Loganville, some of the data shows it may have kind of an aging population, and that's neither inherently a good thing or a bad thing, but as the comprehensive plan says, it can present some challenges for a community, but it can also be a sign that the community struggles to retain young people. And so the comprehensive plan provides general strategies for addressing these challenges, include permitting, even in sort of the, building permit sense, a wider variety of housing types, building walkable neighborhoods where people can travel without a personal car, and providing attractive places for people to gather. And so these next couple slides are just have some more data on some of the survey work that Loganville did in its comprehensive plan. And then the next slide after this one is again just sort of that population growth that I touched on earlier, where there's and this is Metro Atlanta. This is specific to that MSA. What is that? Metropolitan Statistical Area. About 8 million residents by 2050. So some significant growth there. But to get in specifically with that sort of background and context, I find that sort of stuff interesting, and felt like it was worth sharing. So the subject property, as I mentioned, is in between Twin Lakes Road and Highway 78. We are proposing a rezoning of the subject property to RM6 to accommodate a mixed residential development, so a combination of attached townhomes and detached single-family units. It's 123 townhomes and then 26 detached homes. On this, I think we may be, we can go back a few slides. I think it shows some of the, let's see, forward, a couple more. Okay, yep, one more. There we go. So what this is just sort of starting big picture and then drilling down into the actual site plan. Would submit to the Planning Commission that the proposed development is compatible with the surrounding area, given the zoning classifications and land use in our surrounding area. So, we're on Highway 78, so that's a major regional transportation corridor, has a lot of vehicle trips every day. And so when planners consider, well, if we're going to have a jurisdiction that in its zoning code allows townhomes, allows some of that medium or high density residential, where are appropriate locations for it? So often you hear along major transportation corridors, in close proximity to other high intensity uses or even higher intensity uses, but also increasingly you see, especially when you talk about new urbanism, land planning, and some of the new land planning, conversations that are out there is being walkable to other, community assets, community amenities, like the subject property has, with West Walton Park and the Meridian Community Center and the Victory Baptist School. But so, to get back to the zoning classifications, we have higher zoning classifications that allow higher residential density to the west, south, and northeast of us. So there's 3 properties that are zoned RM8, just to our south off of Highway 81, just to our west across Highway 81, and then I believe it's called the Cottages at Loganville to the northeast. So would submit respectfully to the Planning Commission that the proposed RM6 is compatible with the land uses and physical characteristics of the surrounding area, given its location on a major regional transportation corridor and the presence of other even higher density multifamily type attached housing residential uses. So the next slide here, this is a colored rendering of the site plan that was submitted with the application. And so some of the high points here I mentioned. It's a total of 149 units. That's a density of 5.35 units per acre. It's a mix of 123 townhomes and 26 single-family detached. those detached homes are proposed to be rear-loaded style homes. So the garage doors are on the back of the house with the fronts of the homes facing that external right-of-way. And so what we are thinking there is to try to, especially along Twin Lakes Road with the park across the street, create that sort of walkable park setting that you'll see, and we have some examples here, but like Sewanee Town Center, Alpharetta, they have in these walkable areas that rear-loaded style house, so people can walk out their front door onto the sidewalk, walk up and down the road. We have some, I'll get into more detail, pedestrian infrastructure where we would propose, it's called Hawk Crossing System. So if you have traveled on Buford Highway, right there at the Sewanee Town Center, there's a lighted crosswalk from the town center over to, I don't know if it goes directly to that Still Fire Brewing, but it's a signalized crosswalk where somebody walks up to it, they push the I'd like to cross button, and then there's a lighted signal that changes, stops vehicles, lets people cross. And I see it in use all the time. It's very convenient, it's responsive, vehicles understand it, they obey it, it's intuitive. And so that's something that we would be willing to work with the city to provide out there. You know, I think we'd have to just make sure we coordinate with, you know, applicable departments of transportation, but we think that's important enough, and frankly, it's sort of, we think, can be presented as an amenity to residents if the development is approved, that this is a walkable area. You've got a great park across the street, which has, athletic fields and playground type of things, but also a pretty nice network of nature trails in that wooded piece. Additionally, you've got that Meridian Community Center. There's a daycare, I think, on the corner there. And so that walkability, we think, is attractive, and that's just, external walkability, being able to walk to those things outside of your community. But inside the community, we have, planned for this some attractive amenity packages, including a pool, a cabana. We've got some gathering places like fire pits and that sort of thing, but there's also an existing lake on the property that we think can be sort of cleaned up and amenitized for use and enjoyment by residents with, some nature trails going around it, maybe even like a little fishing dock or pier or something like that, where people can, if they're walking their dog, they can, use the sidewalks that would be provided inside the development, but also use some of those nature trails to get to that internal lake, which we'd like to provide as an amenity as well. So the next slide is just that site plan, but then in black and white. The next is some of these examples I mentioned of that rear-loaded style home. So this is Martin Farm Road in Sewanee, and so you can see this is another example where there are single-family detached homes along the external right-of-way in that aerial shot on the left, and then townhomes behind. So you try to kind of, maintain the aesthetics of the external right-of-way. So people driving by see the front doors of homes. The garage is not in the front, so they don't see the garage doors. Those are in the rear. But you see this attractive tree-lined street with the sidewalk, with the front doors, with the porches. And that's part of that, new urbanism kind of style planning, right? And so the idea there, and at least from what I've read, is the reason, there's sort of two main reasons they like that design. One is making it easier for people to get out and walk around leads to people living healthier lifestyles, because getting up and walking around is generally good for you. And so if you live in a community where it's easy and convenient, you feel safe getting up and walking around, you're more likely to do that. And so that leads to healthier lifestyles. But also that front porch design, really the idea is that is a way that sort of fosters more connections between people in a community, because if people have these usable front porches, they face the sidewalk, they're going to sit out there and their neighbors walk by, you have more interactions with people. So that's just some of the, land planning type of theory, I guess, for lack of a better characterization behind all that. This next slide is Floyd Road in Smyrna. So again, similar situation, detached homes along the external right-of-way, townhomes behind. This next one is Thompson Street in Alpharetta. So same kind of thing, detached homes with townhomes behind. in a walkable area. This part is, you know, convenient to walk to downtown Alpharetta, which is, you know, has evolved a lot over the last several years, and Avalon and those types of things, but similar sort of idea there. So I mentioned some of the amenities. This is just sort of a zoom in detail of what we're proposing there. As I mentioned, a pool, a cabana, a dog park. We also like to provide some additional, you know, community gathering area type amenities. So proposed fire pit with a pavilion. There are some other pocket parks, just in opportunities where we have some green space on the property to give just little pocket parks, little places for people to gather, you know, where you have a little, you know, park bench kind of thing, or those, you know, dog walking stations with the little bags and the trash can kind of thing, just those types of sort of smaller passive amenities. But the walking trails, and then maintaining and try to amenitize that existing 3.5 acre lake. This next shot is just a rendering of the type of pool and cabana that we're proposing here. This next slide is, again, just some conceptual renderings of the fire pit and the pavilion, and I believe that's a photograph of the lake out there on site. So, you know, very pretty. We think a good opportunity to really accentuate that and make it something special that's unique to this community. I mean, it wouldn't be the only subdivision with a lake, but it would be, we think, very attractive to residents. And then the following few slides here are just some, again, renderings and photographs of the proposed houses on the subject property. So I would submit attractive architectural style. You know, this is maybe not the right use of the word in like a strictly art context, but like contemporary, you know, modern, these building materials, so brick, stone, fiber cement, you know, the cementitious shake siding, board and batten type of design for both the detached homes and the townhomes. And then some of these next renderings are just, we frankly, my client was really excited about the potential to amenitize and dress up Twin Lakes Road. And so these are some renderings that we did of how that streetscape could look. So you would have the sidewalk along Twin Lakes Road, but then you'd also have these access points coming from the front door of the house out with a sidewalk connection to that bigger, you know, community sidewalk, and you'd have landscaping and street trees that we think could actually end up being really attractive and really something special for that property. Here's just another rendering with a little bit different view of what we've got for Twin Lakes Road. And then this last rendering, I think this is the last one. No, we've got one more. It's just a detail showing that same landscaping out there for Twin Lakes Road. So in summary, really excited about this. We think this is it's a special property. It's a unique property. It has a lot of characteristics that we think make it an appropriate candidate for this type of development. It was actually previously zoned, it's currently zoned CH, but before that CH zoning, it was zoned PUV for, again, a mixed-use development. I think it actually had some flats, like apartments above retail type of use. That didn't pan out. It was zoned in 2008, and so the recession happened. That didn't work out. But you know, some of the other characteristics that we think make this appropriate, as I mentioned, the compatibility with surrounding zoning classifications and land uses. The present, specifically RM8 to the northeast, to the west, and to the south. We're sort of in the middle of that. We have frontage on Highway 78. We've got 3 entrances proposed, 1 on 78, 2 on Twin Lakes. We think that the specific relation of the property across the street from the park is more supporting grounds for a recommendation of approval, because it would give residents an opportunity to you know, walk not only in their community, which we would propose as walkable, you know, in itself internally, but those other community amenities being close by, we think is a special circumstance that underscores that proposed land use here. So I'll stop there. I'd be happy to answer any questions that y'all may have, but would respectfully request your recommendation of approval. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Shane. All right, at this time, we'll open the floor to people who may be here in favor of this project? Would like to come up and say a few words? All right, seeing there are none, are those here that would like to speak against? Please take the podium, please. Thank you.
My name is Pete Walker. I live in.
Over at the podium, please. Sorry.
My name is Pete Walker. I live in the Pines at Terra, which is a subdivision on the south side of the ball fields. My concern is traffic, because as you exit the new development onto Twin Lakes, you either go west, hit 81. If you're trying to make a left turn there, that's pretty much impossible at certain times of the day. It seems to me there would need to be a traffic light there to keep that from being an issue with, fire and rescue having much more to do there perhaps. It could be as difficult with traffic entering 78 on the north side of the new development. Don't know what the plans are for that, but it's certainly something that needs to be looked at, because it can be a little bit of a problem if you're trying to get to Kroger to pick up a prescription, trying to, navigate Twin Lakes to 81 North. Just my thought. I don't have any real issues that I see with the development itself, other than ingress and egress to it from surrounding roads.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
All right.
it. Anybody else like to share a few words? All right. At this time, we'll close the citizen input and go to the commission. Commission, any questions for the applicant?
You go first, you want to? Okay,
All right. Londa?
okay. I have several. One thing, would you consider doing commercial facing 78 and then having making you can do an RM4, so it wouldn't be so many houses back behind that, and to do just townhouses and not single houses by themselves? Would that be something that y'all would even be interested in considering?
We, of course, would be happy to look at it in more detail. The project engineer, Barry Edgars, is with us tonight and has been taking notes. So I can share that, a lot of times an applicant's application can be looked at as, well, this is just maximizing theoretical density. This is just, you're trying to cram as many houses on there as you can. And I certainly understand that concern, and I'm certainly not going to stand up here and say that, developers are not motivated by making a profit. I mean, they are, like anybody else that works for a living, at least in part. So, however, where the unit count has a major impact on the site design is the ability to provide, enhanced amenities and do some of those other features like that hawk crossing, the multiple entrances, the walking trails, the pool, that sort of thing. There are, in any development, especially development like this that has some relatively high fixed development costs dealing with the water. We have call it a stream crossing, but we have a crossing over the upper end of that lake. That results in sort of maybe higher than average development costs. And so having a larger number of units to spread those development costs over makes it possible to provide some of that enhanced landscaping, provide some better amenities, that sort of thing. And specifically, that applies to the pool and the cabana. And we're right at that. I mean, 150 units, really what I've seen is about as low as developers like to go when they're providing a pool, because not just in initial installation costs, but in continued maintenance costs down the road. If you get too much fewer units below 150, it can start to be more of a burden on homeowners down the road. And those HOA dues go up, there's higher maintenance costs, and there's fewer homeowners in the community to share those costs, so that can go up. So what we wanted to try to do here was provide those, call them robust amenities, the landscaping along Twin Lakes Road, the pool, the cabana, those pocket parks, the gazebo, the fire pit, all that happy stuff. But that achieving that unit count makes those things viable. And so we felt like that was an appropriate trade-off. We think it led to a better result in the community. And so that's a really long-winded way of saying we did put a lot of time into this before submitting the application. And this is what we felt like was able to be, we felt like the best result, and the unit count allowed us to do some of those higher end, we felt like more interesting amenities, but we'd be happy to take another look at that. But I'm just not sure at this point we'd be able to make that change. We'll dig into it, but I guess my answer would be we'll look at it again, but this is sort of where we fell in the drafting.
There's no residentials, on 78 right now, facing 78. So they
Right.
would kind of be, because there's a Dollar General right there. And then the Ford Place. And
Right.
there's not really any residential houses that even face 78 now. They've gone through, and so that was the reason I was just saying it would just kind of stay with the same landscape if you did commercial facing 78 and then build your project behind the commercial buildings. So-
That's a fair point. I mean, it really is a good point, and it's something we thought about, and I think we even studied on the front end. My client, in sort of their underwriting, did more so of that than me, of course. But there are, I think, the cottages to our northeast, that's kind of a narrow piece that goes back a ways, as you know, but I think right across the street, there are some, Barry, are those graded commercial pads across the street? I don't know if they've got infrastructure, but there's some, ready commercial land right across the street that's been vacant for a while. And so I think that's something that when my client looked at that, they worried about the viability of doing that commercial and a desire to not have just sort of these vacant commercial parcels out in kind of the front door area. That's at least our thinking. That is not meant to try to argue with
Right,
you at
I
all, because it is a good point, but that's
understand.
just sort of how we were thinking about it.
Okay, I
Yes, ma'am.
understand. Okay,
Anything else, Linda?
no, I think that's it for right now.
All right.
Might think of something else later.
All right. Anybody else? All right. I'm going to throw a couple things out there, if you don't mind, Shane.
Yes, sir.
And Robbie, I may need you here. Talking about the lake and developing possibly around the banks with some docks and stuff like that. Will they be able to do that, or does the Army Corps of Engineers or ARC have any say in the development around the waters here in the city?
The 75 feet are in place in part based off of Corps of Engineers. The Corps of Engineers is only concerned with the rebuilding of the dam and ensuring that that's done to code. That's my understanding is once that's all they were really going to be checking on. Anything outside of that is going to revert back to us.
Okay.
So that's going to be the 75 feet from any waterway.
Okay, 75-foot buffer. And also, my understanding of the RM6 zoning does not allow for detached, and there's detached in here, so I don't know if that would be,
It would have to be
Feasible.
a conditional use granted by the city council. It is not currently allowed under the RM6 for this application. They are too far away from the downtown area. The detached conditions were placed on properties within a half-mile distance of the intersection of Pecan and Main Street. I mean,
Okay.
of Covington, no, Pecan and Main Street.
okay, all right.
Mr. Chairman, would you mind if I just offer
No,
some
please.
comments on that?
Yeah.
And so that's, Robbie describes what we understand to be the city's position accurately. That's what he told me when we talked about that issue, just for what it's worth, so we didn't just read the code and say whatever and submit it in anyways. The way we were reading that, and shame on me for not verifying it with Robbie ahead of time, but the way we read that was, in RM6, it says whatever's allowed in RM4, you can do in RM6. So we focused on the surface level, what uses are allowed. And so detached is allowed in RM4, The caveat is that in RM4, you have all those additional standards that come with it. And so, we sort of read that to say, if the use is allowed, the use is allowed in RM6, and it can be restricted by other conditions, dimensional standards, which RM6 has different from RM4. But that was our reading of that, but Robbie and I had an opportunity to discuss that, and I think so the way that could be addressed is if there was a zoning condition that said, homes located along the frontage of Twin Lakes Road or Atlanta Highway, US Route 78 shall be provided as single-family detached homes, something like that. That condition could solve for that.
Okay, awesome, thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
All right, I think that's the only two things that came in my mind. Anybody else? Go ahead.
Shane, I saw your pictures of the townhomes, the single-family homes that you had in there. Is that the actual models, elevations that are being put on this property, or is that pictures of another community? I saw I saw the Alpharetta, different locations. But what is actually being placed in this, if it's approved?
Yes, sir. Yep. So those slides that had, the Sewanee example and the Smyrna and the Alpharetta, those are existing communities. I don't think Revive did any of those. Those are existing communities, and those are just photographs of those units. The slides at the end of the presentation, those are a combination of photographs of existing homes and renderings, conceptual renderings of the style of unit. And so Revive, in projects like this, their main role is, developer, right? So they handle the land acquisition, design, development, permitting, that sort of thing. And then they will partner with builders who come in and build the homes, either with them or they'll build them on the lots. And so those renderings, those examples are a combination of some of Revive's best, builder partners that would come in. And we try to, submit a wide range just to say, hey, this is sort of the whole range that we're considering for the property. So I hope that answers the question. Those styles are what is proposed for the development, though, if that makes sense.
While you were speaking, Shane, one other thing came to my mind. Will this be one developer or multiple that would be engaging in this development?
So it would be one developer. Revive would, if approved, they would go through the design, LDP, permitting, all of that, and then they would, I think, Barry, the goal, what you always want to do is sell all the lots to one builder, or bring in one builder partner to take down all those lots with you. That's just, it's more efficient. It's the ideal scenario. So that's sort of how these projects will often work.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, go ahead, Linda.
Okay, talking about the single homes. So on your map, it looks like you've got 9 homes, individual homes facing 78.
Yes, ma'am.
So if you didn't build those 9 homes and had that commercial instead, how would that affect the development all over? Would it be really a big cost difference for y'all not to have those 9 houses? Or is there someplace else on the plan that you could put those 9 houses?
So the way I think it would work, and Barry, please come up here and kick me if I say anything that's not accurate. So the commercial pads would be deeper than that row of townhome units. And so I think
Okay.
a commercial pad, those detached lots are probably 150-foot deep, somewhere thereabouts, maybe 125, 150-foot deep, something like that. And a commercial pad would likely be a bit deeper, maybe 250 to 350 feet deep. So you would eat up that first row of those 9 homes,
Right.
and then you'd start eating up into that second row as well,
Okay.
just on the pad dimensions, the lot dimensions.
Gotcha.
From there, we would probably want to have some type of landscaping or light buffering in between. You know, you'd want to design it so where everything was cohesive and work together, but I think a little bit of kind of respectful separation is often not a bad thing. And so that could push us back a little bit further. So it could be, you know, get into going from 9 maybe to 12, 15, 18 to 20 lots. And that's where it ends up having a major, a bigger impact on the rest of the
Okay,
development.
so how close will these houses set to 78?
They would, I think the setback we've got on there right now is a 50-foot setback. Is it fit further than that? So a minimum 50-foot setback off of the right-of-way. So not necessarily from the curb or the edge of pavement, but from the right-of-way, 50-foot back. Actually, more than 50. That might get you to a little bit in front of the porch, Barry, so maybe a 55 to 60-foot front yard setback. Does that sound about right? From the right-of-way line, not the curb or the pavement.
Not the curb, okay. And then you're proposing also, if that happens, that you would have sidewalks like there, down through there too, right?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. There would be, on both 78 and Twin Lakes, you would have, so going from the right-of-way, whether it's Twin Lakes Road or 78, you'd have, the roadway, then you'd have some separation, grass strip, and then you'd have, call it the community sidewalk, that goes along the whole right-of-way. But then, inside of the, external community-wide sidewalk, you would have that sort of smaller access sidewalk, call it, where you would come off of the front porch of the house on your little access path to the community sidewalk that would lead you to some sort of designated sort of, I don't know if it'd be a gate or a gap in a fence or gap in the shrubs or something like that. But then that's where you'd have that connection to that external community sidewalk.
Okay. Okay, I think I'm finished.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Anybody else come up with anything else? All right. Seeing as that, we'll close this comment part. Thank you, Shane.
Sir.
All right. With that being said, do I have a motion for this request?
I would like to see them go back and just take in consideration of doing some kind of commercial along the front, or, move those houses, do townhouses instead of individual homes, since Robbie's saying that's going to be a different zoning for the individual, right?
It would require a conditional use granted by the city
And that
council.
doesn't really apply because they're outside of the town area? Is
That's
that what you're
correct.
saying? Okay, so that's the reason they'd have to have a special permit, so to speak.
Yeah, so the council would have to agree to the applicant and the council would have to agree that a condition be placed on the property to allow for a certain, like Shane said, the wording would be to allow the properties at front Highway 78 and front Twin Lakes would be allowed to have the 10-foot, or probably just match the standards outlined in RM4 for detached houses. But yes,
It's really a tough one.
under
No,
the
it
current
really is.
zoning, it's not allowed.
Huh?
I said under the current RM6, it would not be allowed otherwise.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
I know you asked for a motion, sorry, it's not a motion. I feel sort of like Linda, I'd honestly like to table this to give the applicant some time to consider what does it look like if we did commercial. I think that having single-family residences on 78 is not a very good look. I don't think that it matches our comprehensive plan. I understand the other three properties that you mentioned. In referencing the cottages are pretty far back off the road. You can't really even see them unless you're looking, like really, really looking, and you're probably driving too fast down that way. But outside of that, I think that the project looks to be a very good project. So if I could, I'd like to make a motion, if you need one, to table this. And Robbie, with am I understanding, is it a moratorium? This would not be subjective to us tabling, it would not be a problem.
There's no impact on this project or any of the other projects that their paperwork filed before the moratorium went into place.
Okay, all right. So, maybe, I would guess, like, to ask the applicant, like 30 days, 60 days, would,
Not to make anybody's life more difficult, but we would respectfully request just 30 days at a time.
30, okay.
We hope to get it done in time, and worst case scenario, if we can't get it done in 30, we might say, hey, we couldn't get it done, could we have another 30?
Okay,
If that's-
perfect.
If that's acceptable.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we table this case for 30 days to allow the applicant time to consider adding commercial to the frontage on Highway 78.
Okay, we've got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second?
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those in? Okay, so it passes for tabling for 30 days. Shane, thank you so much. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do we have a second? I didn't think we would have a hard time. Thank you for everybody coming.